Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews on just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Goblin Sword, which just came out on the Nintendo Switch. And yes, before we start the review, this is another mobile port to the Switch, but before you throw the baby out with the bathwater, get ready because Goblin Sword might actually offer you a lot more than you would expect from a mobile port. Just looking at the splash screen, we can tell that the devs actually put a lot of work into making this a more retro-style game. And just like NES or SNES classics, we pretty much get no story other than letting you know you're the hero and there's some evil, so pick up a sword and go kill it. And after that nearly complete lack of story, we're dumped right into the gameplay. Goblin Sword actually is mechanically pretty simple. It's pretty much a two-button game. There's your jump and your attack buttons, and other than the double jump which we start off the game with, as long as you know how to jump and attack, you can pretty much make your way all the way to the end of the game. That's not to say that Goblin Sword doesn't offer the player a lot more, but mechanically the game is simple, and in all honesty, I kind of find that level of simplicity in a platformer pretty refreshing. If you do back out to the main map though, you can go to the item shop and you'll see that there's up to 30 different swords, all with different attack stats, attack speeds, and attack ranges, and a complement of armors you can choose from. But while the weapons do actually add to your gameplay, the armors are more just kind of a character customization. They don't add any defense or anything to your HP bar. But besides these two character customization options, and probably even more valuable than having a more OP sword, is actually the Relics. Just like the difference in stats for your weaponry, Relics add their own flavor to the game, whether you're equipping a ring that helps you out with more item drops, or a pendant that can allow you to deflect enemy oncoming ranged attacks, or even a certain token that allows you to summon a minion to help you fight. Relics in the game will add a whole different nuance to the way that you play. But just like swords and armor, you can only equip one relic at a time, so you'll really need to be careful and choose how you spend your in-game gold. But regardless of how you choose to load out your character, the entirety of the gameplay is divided into 6 different thematic areas. Each area actually has dozens of levels and a couple bosses, and every single level will have a range of collectibles and items that you can find. But the deeper you actually claw your way into each of these themed areas, making it through game level after game level, the more intricate each of the maps become and the more difficult the combat gets. But no matter how hard the level is, there's always going to be 3 collectible gems and 2 treasure chests to find. So if you are somewhat familiar with mobile game style games, each level segment does have its own sort of completionist goal. As I mentioned already, within each themed level area, the deeper you claw your way through, the more difficult it becomes, but also each themed area is exponentially harder than the previous. So you'll really have to develop your skills as a player and get a handle on how exactly to build your character to be able to successfully make it to the end. And as long as we're talking about difficult enemy fights, the boss fights are definitely something to note. Every one of the 6 themed game areas has a couple boss fights to supply. You can move on to the next game area after fighting one boss, but you can also dive back in to try and go for full completionist and fight a couple more. And while each of these boss fights definitely isn't Dark Souls or Dead Cells difficult, they definitely do offer a challenge, but since you can take a couple of hits without dying and respawns are immediate and within the boss room, you can try as much as you want to memorize their patterns before eventually trouncing them and moving on. In addition to the really tight platforming, the challenging boss fights, the whole system of character customization, Goblin Sword also offers a few achievements to unlock for killing a certain number of enemies, breaking vases, putting out lamps, and there's even achievements for getting the good ending, meaning yes, this game, without spoiling anything, does potentially have multiple endings. And so while you can buy a wide variety of armor, weapons, and even relics in the shops, it might behoove you to play through a couple levels again to try and find more equipment, not just for the sake of becoming more OP, but maybe because it might have something to do with how to beat the game. But moving on from game's general mechanics, obviously Goblin Sword offers a lot to the player, more than gameplay, but in its visuals and its sounds. If you were an 80s and 90s gamer, if you had a NES or an SNES console, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to convince yourself Goblin Sword wasn't one of those greats from yesteryear. Its platforming is super tight and everything is really on point as far as aesthetics are concerned. And if I'm being totally honest, there's really only one qualm I really have with Goblin Sword, and that is kind of those mobile style micro achievements. They're not game breaking, they don't hurt anything, and they definitely don't disenfranchise the player from enjoying their gaming experience. But, and maybe this is just me personally, having those kind of micro choppy levels and micro achievements draws the player out of having the large overarching fantasy experience of the game, and kind of converts any game, no matter what style it is, into a more casual sort of experience. But that being said, for a list price of $4.99, Goblin Sword is an obvious must-have for any platforming fans. And especially while it's currently on sale for about half that, if you're even remotely interested, it's probably worth putting on your wish list. It offers dozens of hours of gameplay, and the fact that you can play it as a casual game might actually be a bonus to some gamers. But anyway, that does about wrap up the review of Goblin Sword now on the Nintendo Switch, so if you enjoyed the review, and especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw me a like or a comment to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. There are new and unique indies coming out literally every single day. And whether it's an easy hard pass or an absolute unforgettable gem, you're probably going to find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamers. As always, thanks for watching.